justify.
In the competition of epic backgrounds, I thought I was doing well until Leonard and Dan showed up with like the horizon of the ocean for Leonard and epic mountains behind Dan. Just taking a moment to drop in. If it feels right to you, close your eyes and just notice the life force moving through the body, allowing yourself to relax, scanning the body to feel where you might be holding tension. Just send the next in breath to where you feel tension, and as you exhale, let the tension leave the body. Hmm. And I want you to just bring to mind right now something in your life that you feel a deep appreciation for. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a physical object, maybe it's your home. Just taking a moment to appreciate this, letting this appreciation raise your vibration and filter through every cell of your body. Remembering always that you can choose to focus on whatever you want, and gratitude and appreciation is a solid vibration to come back to when you feel confused or lost or fearful, stressed. One breath and an intentional drop into gratitude is a powerful place to recenter yourself to. Let's take a final deep breath in. As you let it out, you can bring yourself back to the circle, feeling landed, feeling grounded. So, brothers, welcome to the fourth week of the relationship phase of the legendary lover method. And yeah, feels good to be back here again. I really look forward to these sessions. It's relationships are such a powerful element of the human journey, and there's so much to be gleaned from them. And yeah, I'm continually amazed at just how powerful and potent relationships are. And I think I've shared with you guys before, like I'm in the space of my relationship, which is completely new ground for me and my partner. Like we're both at 6 years, and this is the longest relationship for both of us. And yeah, the layers of depth and complexity and nuance that comes from going on a deep journey with someone is, yeah, it's really remarkable. So, yeah, kudos again. Just a recap of the first couple of weeks. We started in week one by, yeah, anchoring in the solid foundation, a revisit of the first 4%, like this practice of really making sure that you're showing up as fully as you can for yourself. In the second week, what did we do in the second week? That was the decluttering week, the recognition of the past relationships that you have until you learn the lessons. This is true for most things in life. Life continues to bring you the same experiences, and this is true with relationships as well. And so, if you've ever been in that loop of having different people showing up at the same themes in a relationship, it's normally because there's something to learn and to integrate from that relationship. And so we went through that aspecting process where you moved from one polarity to the other and use the emotional release tools to be able to switch between yourself and say the things that weren't said in your past relationships and harness the gold and the lessons from those relationships. That's a continual practice. You may need to aspect with the same person multiple times if there's a lot of energetic charge still held up in that. And you know if there's energy there, if there's any feelings of anything else except deep love and respect and appreciation. And depending on how recent that relationship is and how deep that relationship is, that may take some time. And that's part of the process. But these emotional release tools allow you to move through that. There was also a process in that week around writing a letter to that person, getting off your chest anything that's not except supreme love and just gratitude for that person coming into your life. And then last week we looked at like a refinement of yourself and we looked at the inner kingdom and we spoke about the various archetypes as well as recognizing that in a partnership or a relationship where there's two of you, just a monogamous relationship or a dyad, you and one other person, there's really four of you in that relationship without going into the entire inner kingdom because that gets infinitely more complicated as you recognize that there's multiple voices inside you and inside your partner. But the main energy in tantra is these masculine and feminine energies that move through both men and in a woman, and recognizing that they exist in you and in your partner, whether your partner's in a male body or a female body. But there's almost four of you in a relationship, and you need to hold space for all four of those different parts, those masculine and feminine energies inside the relationship. Today, we are going to move into a reflection on the potent transformational power of love. Like how does love genuinely move us, and the transformational power of what love is in relationship and how it moves us. But before we get there, let's have a quick drop in and just take a moment to share what's moving for you. I'd like to hear what's alive right now and also how the content's landing. If there's anything that feels like it's complicated or a breakthrough that's happened for you in going through the content and installing it in your life. I really want to get a sense of what's alive for you around the themes of love and relating in your own personal life as it relates to how you're going through this program. If you feel called to share how your self-pleasuring practice is going, how your ejaculatory choice are going, remember the first phase of the 21-day journey with Leonard. Have you continued that practice? How's it relating to your lovemaking? So bring some of those themes so we can get a sense of what's just genuinely alive inside the container. And let's have Uri kick us off if that's okay, brother. And I'll get the timer going here. And if you can pass on to somebody when you're done.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Garrett. Um, what is alive? I This week I completed the two books that I was reading. One is uh, Enlightening Sex from David Data, and I'm now starting to read The Way to Vibrant Health. They are sort of a similar. They are relevant. It's a great knowledge about the de-stress, focus on your body, circulate the energy is very relevant to what you do. And and I uh, Now the focus is on making it part of my life, so which will be important. And I got some interesting feedback from quite a few people, surprisingly, that I'm coming as a more vibrant, kind of a conscious, and it comes from different sources. Kind of I laugh more, so that feels like that feels good. That feels positive, and I feel that I'm kind of connecting better with the people. And I am in terms of relationship. I am planning to spend some time with I would say, ex-partner, but she's coming for the wedding here to Cape Town, and I will still see how I can stay in my truth and how to connect and communicate with her and focus on what is relevant for me, what is important. I was always saying I want to have a relationship that is that goes deep, that is loving, that is harmonious, that is growing, and that's what I want. But I'll have it another go, and if it doesn't work, then we stay friends. But and if there is opportunity to do something, We'll see. She has also a problem, kind of a health problems. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which just got confirmed today, which is not a great news, but we'll see how all that lands. And I asked sort of a acquaintance yesterday, and he was boasting about how the great life is in Cape Town, that he has a lot of South American escorts that he can introduce me to, and just wow, funny. Then I said like, yeah, that's lovely, but that's not necessarily actually the direction that I want to go into. So I'm sure that there will be an interesting party and whatever, but. That was also good to see that that's kind of not what I want to spend my energy on. And that's where I am. So, and with that, I will pass the baton to Brian.
Okay, thank you. You're right. And bear with me as I finish a mouthful of snack here. Um, well, boy, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit this all in 4 minutes, so I'm going to just kind of try to blaze through it here. Right now, I'm in a cabin in the deep mountains of Colorado. And boy, the blessings of the past week just keep raining. Turns out that the owner is a man who's been involved in men's work for 30 or 40 years. He's 70 years old now, and he's written a book and has worked with Robert Bly and all kinds of luminaries in our space. Went on a beautiful walk with him yesterday and got to know him a little better. And this was completely unexpected. Had no idea. Coming out of a very extended weekend of several days of medicine ceremony, there were two tribal leaders from the Hunikuan tribe in the Amazon rainforest in northern Brazil that came up and hosted and shared their traditions and medicine with the group. I had a really interesting experience there where I went easy on the medicine and stood in my power and honored my intuition and body to do so when literally everybody else like went all in for frog venom Sunday morning after being up all night. Both of these big parts of this ceremony were like all night long. Started at 8 p.m. one night, finished at 8 a.m. the next day. And so this happened over 3 days. And in total, I got 7 hours sleep. And so it was a pretty big draw on my body and resources. But something interesting came up. There was a young Brazilian woman, like I'm guessing around 30 years old, who really quite clearly was cozying up to me. And we had long conversations, and I had no interest in pursuing anything with her. And she's sharing that her things are rocky with her husband. And as I start to talk to her more, it's like very clearly that unless he cracks open his heart and gets behind his wall of, immature masculine, those two aren't going to be married for long. And when I came back and I shared this with Linda yesterday, and whose relationship is blossoming quite incredibly beautifully still, as she and I were deepening in our physical intimacy last week. Linda said, well, you're free to pursue this other woman or anything else you want to. And it was both beautiful, and I was like, you have no idea just how uninterested I am in exploring anything else other than what is unfolding between you and I. And I feel that all the way in my bones with her. And it just feels like such a beautiful thing. I've had many morning prayers and crying with tears of joy and awe for what's unfolding between she and I. And what's unfolding in my apprenticeship around moving energy. I'm really onto something big here that I don't have time to explain. And my morning practices are happening more often than some of the follow up reinforcements, shall we say, throughout the day. But that's still happening beautifully and getting stronger in that space. And I'm looking forward to being put to the big test. And I'll wrap this up here soon. Um, and just as we were invited to drop in here, a download happened, and I'll share it real quickly. In the invitation by Gareth to relax, I was told years ago that to put my tongue on the side of my, to the roof of my mouth, and breathe when I want to relax. And in a self meditation thing I recently learned, turn the head. And it just dawned on me that this is what happens when you sleep. It's quite often that you're fully relaxed, you're asleep, your head is turned. So this is a physical reminder or common place for your body to be in that deep relaxation. So I want to share that with you guys. Thank you for letting me go over, and I'll pass to Jesse.
Great, thank you, Brian. Um, Gosh, yeah, I've been kind of laid out for the past couple of days. Got really sick over the weekend. We had, I know I mentioned to a few of you, we had a huge, basically it's called a polar vortex freeze when the Arctic air blows south, and so we got temperatures down into like, I think it's got to be like 8 degrees, Fahrenheit. And anyway, I mean, long story short, I got sick, and then of course when I get sick, and then my son got sick, and so I was planning on actually being in a different look, hoping to be in a different location for this call right now, but I'm here watching my son, and he's around, kind of needing me at some points or not, but trying to get my attention or whatever. But yeah, I mean that's what's alive for me right now. And yeah, I'm feeling tired. Tired, just kind of still not firing on all cylinders here. And it's a lot. Yeah, I just I want to say something more profound. But it's like my reality the last 5 or 6 days has been just here and healing and very very inward, and I like to say peaceful, but it's sometimes not even that. Finding my ways to in core to continue with the morning practices. A lot more difficult when we're sick, right? When we're not 100%, when we're not feeling normal. It's been hard to keep up with. And when when I have gotten back to it, it does feel like a um, really good to get back to it, and back to the routine. And yeah, what else do I want to check in with? That's that's what I got this morning. That's what I got for us. Um, I I'm gonna pass it on. I'm gonna pass it on. Yeah, I'd love to hear from let's hear from Dan. Yeah.
Thanks, Jesse. Uh, yeah, what's going on in my world? Last couple of days, well, this week so far, this work week has been absolutely full on, like really, really full on. Um, it was my son's 17th on Sunday, and he was with his mum, so they're with me this week. So, yeah, I wanted to make a full-on night for him last night, with the evening meal and a cake and presents and everything else. And I got home and I had to give him an emergency haircut because it turns out that um, his friends aren't professional hairdressers, and trying to give someone a haircut in the park in January apparently doesn't really work. Um, so yeah, but he was really, I couldn't put a foot wrong with that one actually, because he was really, really super stoked that I made it better. I'm not sure how much better I actually made it, but he certainly felt that it was a lot better. So that really kind of warmed my heart. And just kind of, I just noticed the real change in him, because he was kind of hiding in the bathroom with his hoodie up like that, going, "No, I'm not showing you," to like being full on, kind of like jumping around and really happy and stuff like that. So that was good. Um, but yeah, a lot of real kind of exhaustion, tiredness this week actually so far. And I'm quite happy at the moment because I've managed to drive home in daylight. I'm not actually that far from my home at the moment. Um, so yeah, in terms of relationships, I had a very short weekend with Tanu. That was cut short by her daughter coming to her house, even though she should have been with her dad, her 8-year-old daughter coming because she was ill, and a kind of impromptu meeting of her daughter that wasn't planned and felt a bit clumsy. But I think we all did as best as we could with that one. And yeah, I certainly made the right step to leave and to basically to come home and leave them to it. Um, yeah, it feels I feel at the moment like um I can't put a foot wrong. Like everything is just all the feedback I'm getting is just so positive, and that everything's just yeah. And it's a bit is where it's very scary because I'm not. It's effectively a different relationship to the ones I've been used to recently, or in my past. Um, where the other person is just so complimentary and so yeah, keeps on giving me positive feedback all the time, and that's quite uncomfortable for me. Um, but it certainly makes me feel that there's things going on, there's things moving, or things that have moved in my world. Um, and the whole thing it honestly feels like an experiment. It feels like like a laboratory. Like all that we're learning here and all that I have, all the work that I've done on myself in the last 3-4 years. Um, I'm being given the full open um, opportunity to to live it, basically, to try it, to experiment with it, to express what I want, um, to set boundaries, and it's Tanu's certainly giving it with all her yeah, she's being very, very open and very kind of soft with it as well. So that's good. Bit surprised that's my time's up. So I've got a lot more to share, but anyway. I'll pass it on to Diego.
Damn, brother, thank you so much. So happy to be here. Um, where I am at, I'm very proud of myself. Because I continue to do the work. Last night I got a visit from a friend that was wanting to work with me. Um, but I guess he had like a emotional crisis and he kind of disappeared. Um, and last night he came and he showed me that like it's like a public speaking group, like it's 5 people, and it's like all set up and stuff. I'm like, wait, wasn't I supposed to be a part of that? Like, and I don't know. Sometimes I just feel I don't know. But it's. I keep doing the work, and I know I'm ready to do the work. I am a public speaker. I'm not saying anymore. I'm trying to be. I am a public speaker, and I'm so happy because the one relationship that really matters is the relationship with myself, and I feel like that one has been improving a lot. To the point where I'm noticing how that relationship is helping with my other relationships, like with my mom, with my nurses. I feel like that in a way is helping me improve those other relationships that I need to or that I want to improve. You know, it's and it's because I'm doing the work every single day. Like I sometimes feel like overwhelmed because I'm like I have like two, three other like not groups, but like containers or I don't know whatever you want to call it, and just doing the work. It's paying off, and I'm happy about that. I'm getting ready to have my public speaker coach. He's gonna come visit me from Africa, and I'm looking forward to it because I know that that's gonna definitely change my life, and just keep doing the work. I'm just like so happy, and I know my hard work is paying off. Um, and I'm just happy to be part of this group as well because it's definitely changed my life. Today I feel happy. I feel, although it's been kind of, I've been growing some fear, but on Monday I met with my psychologist, and I'm letting go of that fear. Fear only means that I'm growing and that I'm doing the right thing. So I've decided to embrace that fear. Um, so yeah, I'm doing good. I'm working on myself every single day, and that's all we could do. And with that, I believe I'll pass it on to Leonard.
Oh, thanks, Sergio, brother. Yeah, sure. So much to share. I suppose there are two parts to my share, my personal space, but then also parts of my share will also relate to this work, not just relationship, but also in the sexuality space. So, but what's happened for me over the weekend. So I think it's quite. So I'll make sure I'll share that part also because it's also relevant to that part. So yeah, so the weekend I connected with my ex-partner, which we're in this separation space, individuation space, and haven't made love for 2 months. And we felt like doing a medicine journey together with lovemaking. And super interesting. So I have been basically not ejaculating for 2 months because the last time we made love was 2 months ago. And I've been self-pleasuring a lot, almost daily, and when also away at the garden route. But then the most fascinating thing is the morning. So we were going to journey on Saturday, and then Saturday morning at around about at 7:00, I had a wet dream where I ejaculated just like a few hours before we connected, and for holding, it for 2 months. It was super surreal. And normally in these dreams, if I get close to it, I just voluntarily breathe it up. I just breathe the energy up even though I'm in my sleeping. And sometimes it's lucid, but sometimes often it's not lucid. It's just that it's just habitual. Then I don't ejaculate. I still have the sex dream, but I don't ejaculate. But this dream wasn't a sex dream. It was more emotional dream. And I was going to really laugh. I basically ejaculated when I realized I'm missing the bus. There was a bus going somewhere to a party, and I was getting my stuff ready and almost a little bit late. And I was looking through the window, where's the bus? That's still there. And the next moment I look out and, oh, fuck, the bus is gone. And as I went, oh, fuck, the bus is gone, I ejaculated. And I woke up and it was like, what the fuck? So for me, it was such a massive learning, because it was also the confirmation that often ejaculation or prima ejaculation has nothing to do with the erotic and that part, but actually about the emotional part. Often we ejaculate, guys that premature ejaculate with a woman is because the emotions are too much. Because emotions get too much, your body ejaculate. So it was such a body recognition for me, that, wow, okay, God, now I've experienced it. Because there was absolutely nothing sexual in that stuff. It was just, oh, fuck, the bus is gone. So that was super interesting. And then also the fact that it was a few hours before we actually had this journey was another thing that was fascinating. Then we had this journey for the whole day. It was with medicine. And it was just intense, crazy with the energy running through my body. The black mattress, of course, big camping black mattress on the deck. And when she goes to, let's say, to a bathroom or so, I would still be on the mattress, and basically the energy would be running, and I would basically be making love with the mattress. I was actually rolling around in my head in a mattress, and actually I was like orgasming the whole time. And also, that was one of the most crazy energetic, because it didn't really stop. God, I can't believe that's almost over. Over. So basically, yeah, so that was just to share that it was with the help of medicine, but it's just crazy what our body and energy in our body can do. And then maybe, Gareth, if we could take 30 seconds, you were asking the question about the content and the work, how it's landing. Maybe just two points there. The meditation thing, I have my morning practice, but I've never really do meditation. I must say this 4% really got me into my morning meditation, and that is unbelievable. That's great. Beautiful. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for that. So that's really cool. It gives so much ease to my day. The second point quickly is the archetypes, the king and the queen. I also just realized today that, with this relationship, my queen just wants to get together, wants to get back together, because the queen just wants to be romantic and cuddle and be there. And my king, I was just having a pee in a garden earlier, and I just realized, boom, my king is saying no, but the king ended the relationship for specific reasons, and the king is saying, but remember what those are. So I must say that is beautiful example, I think, in my life that I just had that insight, because wow, okay, these are the two voices. Boom. Okay, well, what is the voice that's making the decision? So thank you for going over a bit time there. Thanks, guys.
So good. Thank you. Thank you for your shares, brothers. It's so good to feel you in this. And I just want to underline a few things. And Dan pointed to it. And your share, brother, is basically exactly how we want this container to be, like a laboratory. Like you learn the tools, you go and get to apply them. And that's one of the reasons that we made this course 12 weeks. It may feel long at times, but you really have the opportunity to use this as a laboratory to understand these techniques that you're using. And, as Leonard said in his share, we're in this container with you. We're landing this work as we're installing it in ourselves. And this is life practice. Your meditation practice is not something that you learn on day one and then you're like, I've got it, you don't need to do it again. You're continually bringing it into your life and seeing how that it refines your experience. And so, yeah, Dan, I'm not actually surprised that things are lining up for you. You start to vibrate differently when you take control of your sexual life force, when you stand in your power, when you love yourself enough to know what you want and to hold boundaries. And that's going to be reflected back to you in your world. And it feels like that's what's coming up for you in your connection. And the same thing with you, Brian, even though you're not calling in another woman, if you're feeling in your sexual life force, other people can feel that. So a good-looking Brazilian woman snuggling up to you, beautiful. It's part of the journey, you know. And so yeah, and I love how you held that. You know, you were clear that yeah, this is beautiful, it's connection, but you seemed pretty clear energetically that you didn't want to engage with anything other than what felt like it was aligned to what you're actually cultivating with Linda. And again, these are just refinements. What Brian's talking to there has been an edge for me. The part of me that likes to see if I can hook people in, even if I'm maybe in a connection, you know. So maybe I don't follow through because it's outside of my agreements, but I know the part of me that is working on refining that energetic boundary where I'm clear with my energy as opposed to like being a little bit sneaky and seeing if I can hook. So yeah, just bringing these tools into refinement. And yeah, thank you for bringing all of these shares. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, Gareth. I just wanted to say real quickly too that I shared a little bit of our learnings that these attractions can represent more than just a sexual expression of the attraction. And I shared that with her, and I left open her intention to want to contact me. And I sent her a bunch of resources that I think could, I'm hopeful she finds useful for her husband, including links to what we're up to here and Leonard and Leon. And and so it's interesting because it's like, all right, there was this attraction, and yeah, I recognize you're a very beautiful woman, and I have no interest in sexually engaging with you, and that doesn't mean I have to shut down and collapse in fear of me crossing a boundary. So that felt really good and powerful as well.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I want to bring that piece back in again. Sometimes our erotic charge is pulling somebody into our world or we feel attraction towards them. And we have a program that says, I need to close the deal or I need to connect with this person intimately. But sometimes that's not true. Your erotic life force can be pulling you into a place where you need to be in the space of somebody else. And life is giving you a signal through one of the most powerful things that can wake you the fuck up. And that's your erotic life force. And maybe you just need to have a conversation with a person or receive a book from them or have a meeting about something unrelated. But yeah, just separating that eros might be pulling you into a space that perhaps doesn't necessarily mean intimacy. It might, but it may not. And so just trusting what that is, not feeling shame around it, knowing what it is that you want and following that current is sometimes life bringing you into a new connection. So that tees us up for something that I'm going to share with you, gents, today. And one of them is what we touched on last week, and that's the inner marriage that exists between you and your partners. And let me just do a quick check in this space. Gents, are you okay for us to bring a female-bodied participant into our men's circle here? Any objections? Feel good? I want to bring a different voice to this conversation. You know, we're going through this journey as men. Most of us are maybe bi-curious or heterosexual from my understanding. Diego is not, but it really doesn't actually matter as to what this is. But I do want to bring a female-bodied facilitator into the space to be able to share some of her views of the work that she's done. It's my beloved Araminta. She is an ISTA facilitator. She's been working with sacred sexuality, transformational erotic energy, and life force mastery for almost 15 years. And the theme that she's going to bring today has to do with the feminine, the energy of the feminine and how it expresses, as well as the transformational power of love. So let me introduce this amazing being to our circle. There she is with the stairway to heaven behind her. Hello, Araminta Barbour.
Hi, everyone.
And I see everyone is smiling.
Thank you so much for letting me into your space. It's a real honor to get to connect with men that are, yeah, committed to digging into the complexities of relating. So, yeah, I'm grateful to be here with you all. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. So my intention on this call is to look a little bit at what some of the esoteric teachings say about the purpose of relationship, but also to have a look a bit more at some of the archetypes that are probably alive within you, and that tend to get activated when we get into partnership with others. And yeah, the incredible dance, but also complexity of how to allow these archetypes to inform us, but also to not get too polarized in any one, so that we can become more whole and more integrated, which is really what the esoteric teachings around romance and sexuality point to. I kind of call it the love potion, that feeling when you fall head over heels or you feel madly attracted to somebody outside. And it's such a heady cocktail of neurochemicals from the sort of material scientific perspective. But from the esoteric perspective, there's a story that sounds something like this. I'm going to try to be brief, but it's like modern society for quite a few hundred years has closed a lot of the doors to soul initiation. We live in a very material scientific paradigm, very rational, very much focused on sometimes what's called ordinary reality. And we spend tons of our life force trying to build stable structures in ordinary reality. And for the most part here in the West, the role of sort of spiritual initiation has mostly been lost. But there's one major portal that is open to all of us that is still potentially a very powerful gateway for these incredible forces of evolution to move through us. And that is sex and relationship. So I'm going to just put those two together and say romance, because when you fall in love, you're swept up in incredibly powerful forces. And our society tends to box those forces into a storyline that basically says, you're the one, we should do life together, or we should at least have sex, right? And that may be true, but it may just be to get your attention, that there's something about this other person that often we're projecting on them. We are perceiving them in their what's often called the golden shadow, and we're seeing all their beauty and all their light and all their skills and all their glorious expressions, and we're enchanted by it. And there's wisdom in that, is the esoteric teachings, that actually we're in a kind of holographic universe where we are ideally being called to own and express different parts of ourselves and become more integrated and become more whole. And romance actually gives us an outside other to project unexpressed parts of ourselves. So if you take a moment and think back to maybe, the first time you fell madly in love with somebody, all the ways that you perceive them. And when you have more time, my understanding is you've had a chance to reflect on some of your past relationships. And if you go back to the very early high of falling in love and reflect on what it was that you perceived in them that was so enchanting and so intoxicating, you may actually start to identify certain parts of yourself that you had not yet fully owned and expressed. So often, let's say it's their physical beauty. I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a heterosexual normative frame, let's say as male bodies, and you're drawn to female bodies, then there's aspects of feminine beauty or let's say feminine qualities of sexual erotic energy, or maybe it's the nurturing and the emotional expression and the compassion. So there's certain vibrations that you could say, there's certain aspects that you're particularly enchanted with. That, 1 second, someone's coming into the kitchen, that you're being drawn to. And so what tends to happen is we're in this deep journey with another, and we're in a hall of mirrors, really, of projection. And it's so beautiful at the beginning because all we see is their golden shadow, and they're doing the same to us. And then at some point, 2 months, 6 months, at some point, the facade usually starts to crack a little bit, and you may start to have your first arguments. And for many of us, particularly when we're younger, it's so heartbreaking because the intoxication is so profound. One note about the intoxication that I love is that, most of us have a pretty painful inner narrative that is constantly criticizing ourselves and telling us that we're not good enough or that we're a piece of shit. Like we're often really heavy on ourselves and our inner worlds. And so when we fall in love with somebody else and we're projecting all this beauty on them, and if they seem to like us, that's a powerful pattern interrupter to that negative voice, which actually goes, well, you're amazing. And if you seem to like me, then I can't be the piece of shit that I often tell myself I am. And so we get a space from that inner critic, because actually we're in a state of self-love. We're actually going, I'm okay. Wow, I must be okay. Now, the good news to that is that is available to us potentially at any time, right? That place of deep acceptance and deep personal self-respect and self-love and self-blessing can be done without any external reference points. And the esoteric teachings would say that ultimately that is the purpose, that we're here to become whole, to meet all these parts of ourselves and to love them, to accept them, and to bless them. So in the sacred sexual teachings, this is the work they often call the inner marriage. And I know you've been doing some work around identifying, I think on your last call, we have the inner kid and we have our primal animal nature, and we also have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. And you can continue to play with these archetypes, and I find it really helpful to do so. Because in our society today, I'm going to start with the feminine archetypes. They've also been kind of shattered. There's not one feminine archetype. And many of you will have heard the Madonna whore split. So many women wrestle with the Madonna whore split, and that looks something like, or like the wife high priestess archetype. So within every woman, there's an inner battle between what's culturally has been, the feminine's been split into this seeming polarity where the wife is pure, she's compassionate, she's loving, she's nurturing, she's really focused on commitment and partnership. There's a focus on the relationship and stability and modesty. There's a desire to focus on creating stability in the outside world, in this material plane. And it's a beautiful, virtuous archetype. However, it's only half the story. Some people would say this is the light feminine. And many of us are extremely drawn to this energy on the outside, and we may be seeking it, especially those of you that are like, I want to call in long-term partnership. The challenge within every woman is that there's also the whore archetype, which I think is a distorted word for what I would call more the high priestess. That archetype carries, has been kind of boxed with more of the wild, more of the free, definitely sexually sovereign. It's more of a spontaneous, in the flow, uncontrollable, and instead of being focused on the material plane, it's more connected to, let's say, the mystery or a spiritual connection. So there's a liberation component in the whore. She's not controllable, and particularly, as we moved into agricultural society and out of tribal hunter-gatherers, and we started to own land, and then there's this whole like ownership and relationship kind of got linked to marriage and property and inheritance through the child line, the father line, and there's a kind of a need to have marriage be very stable for property. And so we all have this inner conundrum. And you could say in male bodies with the masculine archetypes, it's the same thing. You could say it's a split between your wild man, your Pan, and your king. You know, or even the warrior and the king. There's a similar push-pull there, where, you know, the king has these beautiful aspects of being service-orientated, loyal, dependable, being a great provider, a protector, a nurturer. So there's a sort of traditional stability there. There can be a real focus on this long-term relationships. There's a structure, there's a commitment there. And this can lead to the beauty of being in service and sacrificing. And then, of course, it can be like too much and self-sacrificing. So there's a deep emotional investment there. And of course, the shadows are always there. It's like we can become so comfort-seeking. We can really just value our home life and the routine. And there's a real sense of predictability and stability. And then at some point that can become claustrophobic, because even though you're prioritizing your duty and your loyalty and your responsibility to your life, and you may be providing amazing, you know, financial security, there's so much pressure, particularly on men, but that archetype to be the provider in a capitalist society through money, you know, you want to be seen as the good man. The shadows is you might be seeking validation through being needed or being useful, right? So you get that security hit when she needs you to provide. But the suppression can be your wild man. So you can also suppress a ton of your own sexual vitality, your raw desire, especially because society has taught us with the feminine archetypes to often polarize the Madonna whore. So there's the pure wife, who's lovable, but may not be fully satisfying the erotic. And then you may be drawn to the wild woman in the shadows, who represents that erotic freedom, but you don't want to marry her. So women, of course, are in this box of like, oh, if I'm too erotic, I'm going to be too much. And also the sort of the dark, there's the light feminine, the dark feminine. The dark feminine is also chaotic, unpredictable. There's a push-pull that if I start to express those parts, I'm going to lose the relationship because it doesn't conform to the stability that the wife and the king are looking for. So the wild man, or even the warrior, is really that part of you that's playful and spontaneous. Personal freedom is that core value, self-expression. It's that similar part of wild and unpredictable. So we're all looking at how to create more balance between these archetypes, and they often can feel like they're enemies inside of us. And how do we turn them into allies, even though they have different perspectives? So you could say there's something that we often notice, that there's some imbalances, or a relationship over time is going to have one or more of those archetypes be at the forefront, that at a certain point, other archetypes are going to want to come forward. You know, the wild man, you could also call it the lover archetype. You know, often those are the characters that really present, like, they're very charismatic, they're very seductive, might be a focus on pleasure, charming. It's like that part knows how to create a chemistry. But they're often very rebellious. It's very non-committal, transient, because it's freedom. So there's a resistance often to commitment, to too much structure, to long-term attachments. And in the shadow, it's like we're always going after stimulation. So we want the hit of the new relationship high, right? You know, often when we're younger, that's what's true for us. We want to taste numerous experiences. And so we can be self-indulgent, we can be super hedonistic. Yeah, we can prioritize pleasure. It's also got an aspect of being aesthetically driven. So it's almost like we're choosing our partners based on their physical attractiveness. It doesn't have to be, it can also just be, you focus on life's luxuries. The shadow is that part of us tends to be emotionally a little bit evasive. Yeah, there's an avoidance of some of the vulnerability and the depth that tends to happen when we get into sustained connections with others. This is the part of us that will focus on sexual conquests, the part of us that is getting our own sense of self through being desired by others. And we're getting a validation hit by being attracted to others. But there's a sense that once you've scored, or once you've won, or once you've, let's say you're dating someone, there's a lot of erotic attraction, and then you feel her kind of fall in love with you. And then you may lose the attraction. And you may have had that at some phases in your life where it's like, the conquest is complete, and actually now I'm not interested, because there's a part of me that is not wanting that deeper journey, because I want to live in the moment, and I don't want to risk my freedom for something that's starting to feel contained. Let me just pause there. I saw Gareth write something in the chat. Yeah. So let's take a breath, because it's I know I'm touching on quite a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, but of course it's like these are things that we all have, and to go back to the esoteric teachings, the point is to make them conscious, which at first can feel like a real downer because it's like, oh my God, there's so much going on. But I'm really happy to hear any comments or any questions about, or even any self-reflections of, what this is bringing up. Where have you been caught in some of these strong energetic roles? Brian, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Araminta. As I'm digesting all this, I'd appreciate if you could just summarize what's different about the wild masculine, wild feminine, and the can't remember your phrase now, but the light modern day wild feminine and masculine, because as I'm feeling into all this, it sounds like there's so much similarity. And if you could just draw those distinctions again, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I love this question. I'm in some ways sitting with this too. I feel like there's definitely a frequency similarity for me also. You could say that and one map is that we are all light feminine, dark feminine, light masculine, dark masculine, and we want to learn how to meet all of these. So specifically when it comes to, because it's actually like a false polarity. It's just because they've been kind of separated out so that we can bring them back together. So in a way, you would say like the dark is more of the lower chakras. So there's more access to primal energies. So they're often more in the body and more primal. And so therefore there's a certain erotic quality to both of them. Whereas the light, both masculine and feminine, tend to be more associated with the higher chakras. So there's a bit more of a spiritual, they're present, they're loving, there's love everywhere, and they're all beautiful when they're expressed healthily. You could say that the dark masculine is in connection with the dark feminine. There's an ability to penetrate through. So like own desire, own the raw impulse, trust one's deep impulse, and penetrate through. So that can look like, it can look like tough love. You know, it's like calling out one's own bullshit and the other person's bullshit. There's like an ability to be very clear on your direction, whereas the light is almost more the other, also very needed part of being able to be fully present and fully loving and compassionate with what is. The dark feminine has a chaotic ability to feel powerful emotions that are often suppressed. So it's our grief and our rage in today's society, but it's aligned with the fact that something needs to die. Something's out of balance, and I'm willing to feel those waves and allow those tidal waves of energy to clear away. So I see it as like, yeah, a tidal wave, the dark feminine, that can feel like super chaotic and overwhelming and scary. But also we crave that, right? We crave being swept away by intense energies. And the dark masculine as well cuts through, it penetrates, it also destroys illusions, but it's more of that masculine penetrative force. It's very clear and it's very direct. It's kind of laser focused rather than a chaotic wave that sweeps. So that's just to kind of feel into the different vibrations of those two. Does that help?
Yeah, so it does. And is it too constraining to describe the dark feminine as a desire to welcome and receive these waves of emotion, and particularly grief? This literally came up in a conversation yesterday around welcoming the transformative power of grief. And so I don't want to split this too much, but again, is that dark feminine this inclination toward receiving all the emotion and receiving all the downloads of the universe? Is that true as you're describing it?
I feel like the dark feminine teaches us, and you could say, particularly to generalize, all of our emotional bodies have been suppressed and denied and late, judged, but particularly from male bodies. So to reclaim the dark feminine, she's the part of us that wants to shake us and go, are you feeling everything? Are you able to be with the full spectrum of the beauty of life and the horror of life? And so you could say the maiden in all of us, and the prince wants to just go see the beauty and can be naively optimistic in its shadow. When it's integrated, it can bless everything, but it's not denying the sister, so the dark sister. So yes, you could say, depending on your personal inner judgments, let's say if grief and sadness has been made wrong, or is hard to really move through the body, then the dark feminine will want us to get in touch with that. And then when those blocks are released, there's an incredible capacity for renewal, because in a way, the dark masculine and feminine know the secrets of death, rebirth. It's like, let go or open your eyes to something that you've been ignoring. And if you do, and you let these powers move through you, you will be, to some extent, reborn. Like there's a transformational component to this that is going to open you up to become something more. And one of the challenges in relationship, when we become very polarized and like, I'll be in the female archetypes, and the classic is, if you're heterosexually normative and you're in a male body and you're drawn to what's often, women have been given more permission to be emotive. And so that's deeply appealing. But actually what you're falling in love with is your own unexpressed capacity to feel deeply. And so a lot of the work that we're all doing now is to reclaim our emotional vibrancy and reclaim our ability to deal with these very intense energies and not fear them. And it's like learning to surf different, bigger and bigger waves and all the frequencies of the waves, rather than trying to control our life and only, don't read the news, don't look at all these things so that we only feel good. And unfortunately, a lot of the self-help industry is these promises that if we do these things, we're only going to feel happy, happy all the time. And it's like, oh, that's not what the esoteric teachings say. It's like, we have to be messy humans as well. We have to be with the reality of this duality. And that's what gives us real power. That's what gives us real strength. And so often in relationship, when we fall in love, we're on the high, and then the projections start to fall because, when you fall in love and you see, it's really interesting to go back and be like, what was the archetype in that ex-lover that I was so enamored with? Because it might be the dark masculine, it might be their light feminine, what frequencies. But eventually, hopefully, let me just back up for 1 second. What we tend to do at the beginning is we try to live up to these archetypes. It's like, I'll be your goddess. Now, in today's world, it's starting to shift. It's not like, okay, I will be the traditional 1950s home wife for you. Now we're in a different time where possibly it's like, no, I will be your tantric goddess, wild woman. That's kind of becoming the new ideal that people, at least in new age circles where I am, all these young women are like, oh, okay, this is the new archetype I have to pretend to be in order to secure attention and safety. And for men too, it's starting to change. It's like, okay, who do I have to be this lifetime? It's like, all right, do I have to make a lot of money and be the provider? Or no, I need to now be also this wild man who, so sometimes we try to maintain the safety of the other person's gaze by pretending to be an archetype for too long, but eventually you can't hold it. Like, you just can't, because it's not who we are. We're everything, and we're messy. And so the masks fall, and then there can be this great disillusionment. And often that's when many of us cut and run, because it's like, oh, you're not who I thought. This doesn't feel good anymore. So I'm going to leave now and go back on what I call the Easter egg hunt to find the one, because we've been told that the one is always going to make us feel good. It's always going to feel like that. That's how we know. So the deeper teachings is like, love and romance is actually immensely powerful spiritual forces here to evolve humanity. Like, it's a big deal what's going on. Like, it's a major, major portal to awakening, and it will bring us to our knees at some point. Like, it's supposed to. It's supposed to confront us with parts of ourselves that we've denied and suppressed. It's not supposed to comfort us forever. It lures us in by the high. It's a little bit tricksy, the universe, but it lures us in. And then there's like these immense opportunities to meet ourselves ultimately. And that this is really the work of so that we don't hold each other to playing these roles for our safety, that we get more genuinely interested in. It's like a soul awakening journey that we're going on with another being that's designed to support our own inner marriage, which is ultimately an inside job. But if we frame the relationship with at least some awareness that, like, this is part of a really big deal, not just the romantic dream big deal, like, this is actually a fast track path to awakening, to evolution. This has evolutionary impulses. And so if I'm polarizing, let's say, women in the Madonna Horth divide, I know that at some point my partner is going to, like, the classic is like women that become mothers, and they have the mother archetype starts to come in super strong, and that's appropriate. It takes front and center. And I'm sure for men, the father archetype takes over, and it's like, it is provision of safety and stability and nurturing and unconditional love to get you through what's a pretty testing amount of service work. And then at some point, the woman will be like, I have no fucking idea who I am anymore, because I've just been so in this one archetype, and I need, I don't know who I am now. And men go through this too, of like, wow. So if we can be excited for each other, like we know we're going to play multiple roles in this dance, then we don't fight each other to try to maintain whatever storyline we've been trapped in. Just want to check the chat to see.
Maybe you can speak a little bit to the what the experience is like being with somebody who has a strong like people pleaser in relationship, and what it looks like from your point of view to experience something else, speaking specifically to like the nice guy archetype. Like I have that, we've worked through this, and I think there's magic in being able to share it, but I think it's maybe good for this container to hear what it's like for someone in a female body, because I think a few of us in this container have been like, yeah, we know that part of ourselves. So if there's something that you can speak to in that as to how it feels and the light and shadow of that particular archetype in men and women.
Yeah, because it is really similar for men and women. I think ultimately the journey is different, but these core frequencies are similar. I mean, of course, there's the beauty of being met with, okay, so let's say that the nice guy is part of the shadow, the over self-sacrificing in order to be liked, be validated, to get the safety and security. The positive gifts is this real ability to show up in commitment and to create stability and to be dedicated. Like there's beauty there. So those aspects, let's say, of the king brings a sense of safety, brings that sense of being chosen, which is deeply desired. And then after a certain point, it can feel rigid. It can feel boring. There's too much routine. There's a yearning for the wild man. There's a yearning for, or there's a sense in the shamanics that you're suppressing a big part of yourself that you either are not conscious of yet, or you are and you're doing your best in your inner worlds to control this part, but maybe it's leaking out sideways where you're watching wild porn with the, more dark feminine, and, you're allowing that to move, but you wouldn't definitely have that. Like there's no way of having that be expressed in your outer relationship, but shamanically we feel it. So we can sense that there's parts of you that actually we're craving, even if parts of us are scared of it. So there's this thing of like, actually, you may say you don't desire anybody else and you're totally happy. But there's actually a knowing that, no, there's a part of you that will always want primal erotic wildness, that has desire. It doesn't necessarily always need to be acted on, but that aliveness is something that you carry. And so in a weird way, there's a mistrust, because there's a knowing that you're denying parts of yourself. And so that leads to some almost suspicion. And of course, there's a challenge there, because that can trigger the dark feminine to kind of bring it out of you. It's subconscious as well. It's like the sabotage will start to come out to kind of poke and test and prod and because there's a sense of the nice guy is actually a manipulative strategy, right? Where we're doing what we can to get the safety that we're craving, but it's not authentic. Like there's other emotions that are at play that are not being embodied. And so therefore we're doing a polite mask game. And there's love underneath that, but at the same time, it's not the evolutionary purpose of the relationship, like from a really profound level, And yes, society says, be the good guy, you're going to get the brownie points. but it's not the only part of you. Does that land?
I would say that it does land, but it looks a little bit like I wanted to say it feels like a losing game because either you are suppressing or you are in some shape and form communicating your desires. But what is a healthy way? Because obviously you can play it out in interesting ways, and I assume the communication is key, and creativity, how you go about the wild desires, and which are inherently part of us.
Yeah, it can feel pretty depressing, because they can feel like inner enemies. So let's say, and even acknowledging that, let's say the wild man and the king is like, they can really feel like they're pulling in opposite directions, because it's like, if I were to embody my wild man, I'm going to lose the safety and stability of my relationship. But if I, focus all my energy on providing and the stability of this relationship, I'm losing something kind of transcendent in myself of an aliveness I can't, like, a part of my soul is going to die if I just try to be this. So it's like, how do we turn them into allies that both have gifts? And there's different ways of doing it. I find naming them, like, even if it's just placeholder names, like, acknowledge that they're there. Maybe one is less known to you,
Yeah.
but at least be able to have an inner conversation. Writing letters between the two is one way. Aspecting, I think, is something that you've done in
Mm,
this
sure.
container that's really, really powerful. It's just give them each a voice, let them each share what gifts they hold, what their needs are, and then start to feel into, like, how you want them both in your life. And to a certain extent, on a practical level, maybe even on a daily, it's like, how can I allow even like a 5-minute practice that gives me a chance for my inner wild man to really be present in my body? And maybe what does that look like? Or you go out in nature and you give yourself time for that archetype to express, because otherwise it's going to sabotage. But it's
Yeah.
also going to empower, like, ideally, once we've got into a deeper level of integration and inner marriage, like, they work together. It's like the wilder primal aspects will keep liberating us from where we've fallen too deep into material comfort. it's, it's just seeking safety in a world that, life is a great mystery, and it will continue to keep us connected with the huge amounts of energy, but also something that's transcendent. So we do need it both. But if we only live in that, we're going to miss the great gifts of deep, deep relating, which is super
Yeah.
hugely important portal of vulnerability and depth and emotional intimacy and heart opening. That is also part of the journey. So how do we create time in our life? And maybe that's, a week, a year, I dedicate myself to going off in nature. Maybe it's solo time. To step out of all of these, sense of responsibilities and obligations, and focus on the partner, to come back to myself. Maybe it needs to be more than a week, but it's like, what is the
Sure.
time, and how can I find a rhythm, and how can I recognize when those needs are starting to knock
Mm,
earlier before they start to create their, because if when we ignore them, they start to create havoc.
yeah.
They come out sideways and sabotage.
Almost for me, it's that conversation. It's beautiful to integrate, but that conversation requires a conscious partner where you are somehow on the similar level, because you're running the threat that kind of other party will collapse. Like if you say, "Oh, I have a kind of a this is my wild dream," and you can I would say that kind of a somebody said, like, it's not a question of finding the one. You always find somebody who is imperfect, and what you can do for the relationship, so you make yourself attractive and you grow. But how do you grow that woman, that partner in general, to your level of understanding without scaring him shitless to run for the woods? And
Um,
maybe what was your journey, kind of a like really kind of admitting it, exploring it, and not concluding like, oh, this guy is so wild, he's kind of unstable, and on other side like, oh, this guy is so boring, like kind of this is not spicy enough. So kind of a balancing that also probably different times of the month, kind of a different flavor.
yeah, there's something inherent in women's biology that also kind of can circulate them through the archetypes. But and these are great questions. I feel like authenticity and vulnerability and transparency with whoever you are is always going to support the relationship, even if it breaks it up, which
Yeah.
I know might sound contrary. It's like the goal has to shift from long-term stability at all cost to integration. Your
Transparency.
integration, that your first relationship is your inner marriage. That has to come primary. And what's weird, I mean, the classic, like if you read Data or some of the kind of not really classic, he's contemporary tantric teachings, it's like the feminine will test the masculine's purpose.
Hmm.
And you can fall into and get entrapped in making the feminine your priority. But ideally, you never want to lose your freedom access. Freedom
Sure.
being you could put it, your commitment to divine, but your divine integration. So in the beauty of showing up and creating stability and being responsible and being committed to a relationship, if that becomes more like if that becomes your holy grail and 100% your purpose, it won't work. Unfortunately, it just won't. And
I feel that.
the feminine inherently will feel that you've lost your transcendent purpose. And so in a way, it will start to lose attraction. So what I was hearing in your question is like, well, I'm scared that if I bring out all this stuff and I make all these requirements, I got to go into the jungle and I'll see you later, But of
It's
course,
not really scared. It's it's not about scary. It's about having strategy that works, that is not counterproductive. Kind of
yeah.
it's not necessarily about burning the bridges. So it's less about scaring, but it's about not necessarily kind of a stepping on the bombs that kind of scar everybody unnecessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I feel when you're curious about what's going on within yourself, it also supports you to be curious, more and more curious about the multiplicity in the other. And
Hmm.
so creating curious conversations where you're like, who's alive in you and do you know these frequencies in you and what has that been like in the past? And so there's like safe spaces just to be in curiosity together. Um, within tantric and stuff, they would say actually create some ritual spaces. It's like, okay, I think I know you and you think you know me, and we mostly express in these ways that are familiar and known to us. But how can we kind of give ourselves permission to step into a ritual space and call in, let's say, the wild woman and the wild man, even just for an hour, and just see how they want to express together, so that you kind of like safely you delineate a little time and space, like you literally go like, all right, we're stepping out of our ordinary reality to go into an extraordinary reality for a small time, and then we'll debrief. Maybe we'll go to our separate corners, and then we'll come back and be like, whoa, what was that like? What did we think? So there's like a sense of using ritual to support these other and frequencies to come through, because they can be so powerful. But what I also heard in your question potentially is, yeah, obviously we don't want to destroy the relationship or the parts that are really still functional, like they're genuinely in service,
Hmm.
and we do want to destroy the stuff that is stagnant. And so
Hmm.
relationships constantly renew, and that can be really challenging and really scary. But it's like, if there's a sense of like, okay, we want to keep putting the relationship itself on the altar of transformation, because again, both of our commitments is to something that is not just about the romantic dream of forever and ever. It's like,
Mm.
yes, I want to keep journeying with you because we're both dedicated to our transformational path. And as long as that this is a vehicle for that, then that's a blessing. But I don't want to spend my life just hiding out in a relationship that made me feel safe, but I didn't grow.
Yeah.
Like to
Thank
feel
you.
the pain of that. And if you're both in that, then that should give you just enough courage to go on this dance, which can really be the most powerful. You could call it it's a spiritual practice. I mean, it's like we don't have places to get initiated anymore, really, in the Western world. So your relationships will be that, whether you like it or not, in my experience. So, but you can do it consciously. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I'm interested in taking this conversation even more broadly into our relationship with the planet and all living things in it. If we allow ourselves to feel the depths of our grief, there is absolutely no shortage of opportunities in this land where in civil society we eat another fistful of snacks as we hear the news of genocide and mass extinction and the absolute defilement of so many things that can and should be regarded as sacred. So take how do we open ourselves to these levels of feeling and grief for what's happening in our species and world without just completely getting lost in a wave that pounds us into the surf and we never come out from again?
It seems to be like crux of the question right now because there's so much to feel. Again, ritual space can help in the sense of like, I want to vibrate my emotional body because I don't want to numb out because that's the choice. It's like I either have to numb and distract myself to such an extent, which of course I would argue has perpetuated the problem.
Yeah.
The signal
Yeah.
has to get louder and louder, so we have genocide happening in multiple places on the planet, probably throughout our history. But because of technology, it's in our face potentially. And yet, what is our capacity? And I feel like it's going to the gym. You know, I don't try and bench press 400 pounds yet. You know, like,
Yeah.
there's moments. But when you really, emotional waves are like very similar to an orgasm if we don't resist them. So there's like a buildup, and then there's often like a peak, and then there's a kind of a beautiful spent feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
The challenge with emotional energy, like it's the same with having, like you could say, a grief-gasm. It's like if you don't, if while it's wanting to move through you, you're not judging yourself inside your head saying, I shouldn't be feeling this, or this means I'm not, I don't know, man, or something like that. And you just go with it. So the feminine is like you allow the energy to actually move through your body by using breath and sound and movement. Then it can be actually quite ecstatic. And so can rage. Okay.
Yeah.
So it can actually really expand you. Grief particularly has a vibration of cleansing and purifying.
Yeah.
So it tends to wash through, so you can feel tired, but you feel purified, and your heart is open, and you can feel great empathy for every living being. So it's one of the most powerful connectors to the entire life web, because there's so much preciousness in being connected to the fragility of everything and how everything's gonna go, you know. But when you're really there, you're also open to the beauty of everything. So there's like immense paradoxes, but when you feel it, you're very much in that light feminine, light masculine of like, oh my God, I just love. And it's indiscriminate. It's not about whether it's my family. It's just like, oh wow. And we need that so much on the planet, because if we actually had that on a regular, the most of us, this stuff wouldn't be happening. So the medicine is in this. And similarly with rage, most of us have, demonized rage so much because we don't know how to sit with that level of intense frequency. But it gives us a lot of courage when we do. And it often only comes up, or like even low levels of irritation and anger, because we're probably overstepping our boundaries in some way. Like there's these little signals coming through the body that we try to mentally push away, but there's information coming through there, and they get louder if we don't listen to them. So, and some of us will feel more deeply when it's personal, like it's in our immediate circle and it's right in our face, and that can allow us to access the great wealth of the depths of emotional expression. Some of us are more transpersonal beings, and it's not until there's something like a massacre, there's something, just a tidal wave. We just had the 20-year anniversary of the tidal wave, and it's just like there's something that's so big that breaks through our defense structures that keep us this, I live in a kind of, I'm in control. This is my normal emotional range. So different access points will drop us into these processes. But it's really helpful to vibrate your emotional body regularly. Mm-hmm. So if you can't remember the last time you cried, it's definitely been too long. It's just easy and easy.
This so much feels like at the very heart of what we as a species have to navigate. Because in Western culture anyway, from the day we've been born, we've been inculcated in a culture that doesn't want us to feel, doesn't want to allow our wildness, doesn't allow or have space or want to give space for all those things that give us access to our power. Because to the point where we have our power, we can no longer be governed by the whim of anybody else. Every democracy exists on the premise that the governing structures have been allowed and granted this power over us. And so I don't want to go down some weird conspiracy theory rabbit hole. No, it's not what I'm saying here. I think, though, that the reality is, to the extent that we allow ourselves to be numb, to not feel connected to our right relation with the land and each other, is the extent to which this horrible game of degradation and profanity in our experience is somehow goes right over our heads. And we, okay, I would like a new TV. Thank you. I'll work my ass off to get a new TV. That's what I need to be happy. And
yeah, I mean, I love your inquiry, because, yeah, I mean, again, are we in a massive hologram, so to speak, of like, we can see things on the outside, but what am I doing on my inner world? Like we colonize our bodies with our minds, and we tend to live in a very, very mindy world, sitting still in front of boxes. So how deeply are we disconnected from the life web on the outside? But it's like there's so much going on at different levels of self that we're often not prioritizing. So how can I start to create a little bit more balance in myself, instead of where again, our culture kind of, it's like, oh yeah, the body I should look attractive, so I'm going to do XYZ Botox, or to force my body to meet some standards of my mind, rather than meet the wildness in the body and honor it for what its incredible capacities are. But we're scared. So we have to admit that we're scared of some of these forces that actually we can't control. So there's a clinging in all of us that's terrified of the unknown. And so the practice is always sort of like how to surrender and learn to love the mystery. But also admitting that, most of us are trying to kind of set up little flags and say, I live here. I own this little, one of my teachers is saying it's like a bunch of little bacteria on your shoulders, putting a little flag up saying, we live here. And you're like, what? Like, we're part of a bigger being on the planet. So to circle it back to the capacity to feel, classically, all of us are the depths of your feeling body. And anytime you allow yourself to go into that, and it can be very scary, but the more that you can do that yourself, the more you've got access to your dark feminine, the more you're going to be able to meet that in your partner and not be scared of it destabilizing you, which actually allows a wider range of archetypes to be stable in your container. So there's something about meeting those waves and learning to love them and learning to notice how you feel. You will generally feel pretty expansive after you allow those waves to move through you. So it's really about feeling rather than thinking. I think one of the challenges, the mind then starts to go, well, fuck, when I take in too much of the trying to figure out what's happening on the planet, my mind can't figure it out. What the fuck are we supposed to do? That can feel very powerless and overwhelming. But when I take it through the body, it's tough sometimes, but it tends to be, there's much more of a renewal there. There's a much more sense of coming back home and being able to be in present witness. So that, I would say, is a really important practice, particularly now on the planet.
Yeah, just thinking about this inner kingdom tool that we spoke about last week. We have all these different characters, and what Minta was saying there was like this place of if you've never seen the wild man in your own kingdom or the wild woman in your own kingdom and suddenly you see it in your relationship, you're going to be freaked out. And what I said last week was this: the more capacity you have to know these parts of yourself and integrate all of them, the more comfortable you become with yourself, because there's no parts of yourself that you're not connected to and that you're not, creating space for. And so, as Araminta was saying, just those naming of those parts, like we started with last week, and the evolution of this tool is practically used in our relationship as well. We have our own inner kingdom, me and mine, and Araminta and hers, and we're speaking to these different parts in our relationship and also getting to know different parts. The dark masculine in me is a new edge for me to get to know this part of myself. Charlie, my people pleaser, I know very well, and Minta knows him very well. And yeah, that's the wounded child in me. And so really getting to know these parts and giving them names and dialoguing with them and creating space for them and integrating them into the kingdom is the way to be able to access and get to know more parts of yourself so that you can show up more fully in your partnership. So Leonard, is there anything you want to bring to this? I know, you've been on a relational journey as well. We've got a couple more minutes. I just want to see if there's anything you want to bring to this conversation about the inner archetypes and how they show up in relationship.
First of all, it's great seeing you, Araminta.
Too.
We met in 2015 at the lake. So for the guys that read my book, Araminta is the English Lady of the Lake. In 2015, which actually taught me emotional expression release, or got me on the path to that. And yeah, the emotional expression release is just so vital, So I can't emphasize that enough. Gareth, no, that was so beautifully put. I think there's nothing really. I suppose there's the one part, the wild man. I mean, I think the wild man in men is a little in the world nowadays often suppressed. So yeah, that's just something that I almost want to emphasize for guys to drop into there. Find your wild man. Find all those parts, but the wild man is such a beautiful, powerful place. I'm pretty happy that I've expressed the wild man in a lot of ways. But yeah, nothing else to add, brother. It's perfect.
Awesome. Anybody have anything else for Araminta before we let her go? Araminta, maybe before you sign out again, maybe just touch one last time on what the inner marriage represents and how that can show up in male bodies. Like most of us are more connected to the masculine archetypes, but the importance of what inner marriage means and how that could potentially support the most important relationship, the one with ourselves. And yeah, maybe just close with something like that. Anything else that you feel called to share that you maybe didn't touch on?
Yeah, happily. So, in a way, the core of Tantra teachings is this idea of inner marriage, that you're bringing your inner feminine and your inner masculine, which is not you. The inner masculine lives within you. So I have an inner feminine. It's different from Araminta. It's kind of like the overall structure. Um, I think given what we've already talked upon, it's like learning to acknowledge her, to give space to her, to be curious about her within you. And that will tend to involve, especially at the beginning, a deepening connection to your emotional life, learning to allow yourself to go through the ups and downs of your emotional life and do some work noticing what frequencies of the emotional body that you judge. It's also often associated with your intuition. So we can split, and this can be argued, but for now, for generalization's sake, the rational, logical, responsible mind that collects data from lived experiences and then, tries to predict and make decisions versus this intuitive channel that you have that gets information from somewhere inside yourself or in somewhat more of a mystical way, and that you equally listen to that. So it's not about having one dominate the other, but it's bringing them both into respect, first seeing them, calling to them, and allowing them equal space within you. So then, because they can often be at war within us. So our inner relationship is polarized and they have judgments against each other, and then we project those out. So the more that you are learning to bring this perceived duality together, you're doing really profound inner work. And it is, so the esoteric teachings would say, what this whole romance and love relationship game on the outside is actually about and is actually for. And so you don't need an outer partner to do that work. It's the same path we're all on, whether you're celibate or monogamous or open relating. We're learning to listen to these frequencies and get their gifts. So I'll share a link with Gareth to a talk I did called Love Potion. It'll cover a little bit more about really seeing relationships as an evolutionary force. And I feel that when we turn to that perspective, it brings in a lot of important added dimensions to this deep knowing that there's an imperative that goes beyond biology to come into relationship and to drink the love potion and fall madly in love with somebody else, because there's a very profound journey going on as well. So the more we can be conscious of that, sets you up for a much deeper game with your beloved. And I think there's gifts for all of us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Araminta, for being part of this. Yeah, a lot of gratitude for having you in my life and the adventure that we're on. And thank you for supporting this container. I think it's felt good to have some feminine energy in the space and the opportunity to be able to ask questions that I wouldn't necessarily be able to answer from my male perspective. So thank you for being here, and yeah, love and appreciate you.
Love you too. Thank you all so much for your presence. I hope it served. Bye.
Thanks, love. And then she was gone. Everybody just take a breath. Move the body a little bit. I realize it probably would have served us to take a little nature break and stretch our legs before bringing Araminta into the container. So thank you for your presence and for holding this so gracefully. Yeah, we'll be releasing the next week's content later today or tomorrow. But for now, let's just share a few words. What came up for you in today's session? How you feeling? And what you want to call in for this coming week between now and our next call. Um, yeah, I'm feeling a lot of gratitude. I'm so grateful for this relationship that I'm in, and for some of you that have been privy to the my inner world and my relationship with Araminta, like it hasn't been a straight line, and yeah, I also don't know if I would be able to access these parts of myself that I can see that need healing without being in this relationship. It's so obvious that I wouldn't be able to get there because and it doesn't feel good sometimes. It feels like holy shit, like I'm just drowning in my own wounds and my own projections into my relationship and yeah, and staying and recognizing that this relationship is a vehicle for my personal transformation, my soul evolution, for the space that I'm holding for my partner is the reason that I'm so interested in doing this work because my personal growth is my number one priority as a value in my life. And so yeah, it just feels beautiful to be able to share that with this space. And I trust that it was in service. And between now and the next call, I'm calling in compassion and healing. And with that, I'm out, handing it over to Diego.
Yeah, that was a treat. Like my mind's like blown right now. I always ask myself why me? Um, and like I said, I believe everyone has a special purpose, and I'm just glad to and happy to be in purpose, living in purpose. Um, so I'm living with a lot of wisdom, a lot of new knowledge. I'm grateful to be a part of this group. And I'm calling in the Madonna horror, the perfect wife. There's parts of me that I still don't know. Like I wanna figure out my relationship with myself more and develop that even further. Um, and I'm grateful and I'm calling a lot of gratitude and love, and I'm taking out with lots of love and gratitude as well. And I'll call Jesse.
Thank you, Diego. Um, yeah, I'm just feeling very, very full right now and um, kind of just so kind of t taking everything in. What I'm calling into my week, into my life this week is a lot of clarity, and kind of integrating mm, a lot of skewers in the fire. I've spread myself really thin lately, and there's a lot of loose ends, and mm, yeah, just a lot of things to kind of get in line in my life. So calling in a more integrated approach, and yeah, yeah. With that, I do need to run to go tend to my son right now. I'll pass it off to Leonard.
yeah, so much gratitude. And it's a beautiful reminder for me that, yeah, relationships and romance is, yeah, it's all about the inner journey and the awakening of the planet and oneself. Um, yeah, I'm super passionate about the collective awakening of humanity and myself. And yeah, it's a beautiful reminder of that. So I feel so much gratitude to be with Gareth holding the space here, but then also so deeply dropping into learnings, as we say, it's a laboratory. So it's really, really deep, even dropping even deeper. So that's a lot of gratitude for that and for you guys. And what I'm calling in is, yeah, empathy and compassion for myself. And yeah, and similar to what Diego, you said there, a commitment also to, or what I'm calling in is the deeper inner journey. I'm more curious, dropping further with myself in exploration and empathy, compassion, and a deeper inner journey. With that, I pass over to Dan.
Thank you, Leonard. Yeah, I'm checking out. I'm feeling really, really peaceful. Yeah, I think yeah, it was just so beautiful having Araminta in the space, and as well, I think it was, you know, doubly special the fact that she's your partner, Gareth. So I don't know, I felt a bit of the energy, a bit of the magic between you both there, and I think that really added to it for me. So huge thanks for that. So yeah, grateful for that. Yeah, between now and the next call, I'm calling in more exploration, more discoveries with Tanu in our relationship, and also with myself. Yeah, I think with in relationship with Tanu, I think the wild man has been certainly coming out sexually. Um, but I think there's something for me there in terms of, yeah, connecting with my wild man just to myself, just by myself. And I don't necessarily mean self-pleasuring. I just almost in a day-to-day sort of level. So yeah, I'm a bit curious about that, but that seems to be speaking to me right now. So yeah, with that, I'll pass it over to Uri.
Thank you, Dan. And I also, Garrett, I was wondering during Araminta speak that where did such a conscious woman came over that was so beautifully able to speak and have a lot of clarity and insights about the questions we asked. Unless I really realized that she been around the ISTA and she's lead facilitator and it shows and it was beautiful what you organized today. Um, it reminded me how important this work is. That's what I seek, a connection with somebody on that level of understanding and self value and beauty, and that really kind of shows up in the personality. And I am for myself, I'm calling in more patience and desire to execute everything that I know of, and I just need to translate it into my life, and that will be enough. And checking out for the next week and handing over to Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Whew, I am overflowing. Um, there's so much that has happened in just 24 hours for me, between that conversation I mentioned yesterday, my apprenticeship yesterday, this material here, I'm sitting in awe, really, of the synchronicities that have all popped and exploded in just this time. And so I'm calling in integration of all this in the coming week, and the deepening of this exploration of what's wild in me. In about an hour, I'm going to be on a snow bike going up to 10,000 feet if the roads will support it, to get some of that wildness connected and expressed, and some of this morning's energy moving through me. And then also the really exploring that aspect of the wild feminine, and I guess holistically calling in wholeness. It feels like this journey of becoming whole in this inner marriage, boy, that just resonates so strongly and profoundly. And as I agree with Araminta, just like so central. So yeah. Whew. What a session. Yeah. Thank you, Gareth, for bringing Araminta on here and expressing the depths of her wisdom and knowings with us. Such a blessing.
Thanks, you legendary lovers. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being part of this container. And yeah, big love to all of you. Thanks for being on this journey.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Ciao.
Nice week.
Brothers.